Super Mario Land, a game most of you are probably already familiar with. Released alongside the original Game Boy, it saw Mario's first leap onto a handheld system, and did not disappoint. I had a lot of fun with Super Mario Land. Its bite-sized handheld vibe really struck a good chord with me, and I'm not alone. Tons of people really loved the game, and as such it did really well for Nintendo, moving an astronomical 18 million units and basically making a sequel inevitable. Well, a few years later, Nintendo delivered, releasing Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins for the Game Boy. A big part of the first Mario Land game's identity was the definite feel of a new game on a new console. This time around though, the developers had had a whole 3 years to familiarize themselves with the platform, and as such you would expect a much higher production value out of the sequel. How well does the second game improve on the first? Let's find out. Being a direct sequel, Mario Land 2 takes place immediately after the events of the first game. Returning from Sarasaland after rescuing Princess Daisy, Mario discovers his arch-nemesis, the industrial-era capitalist Wario, has taken over Mario Land and is ruling over it with an iron fist from the palace. In order to reclaim his spot as the rightful head of state, Mario will need to travel around the land, gathering 6 golden coins by platforming his way through stages and defeating bosses. Upon first boot of the game, you'll quickly notice that the series has received a massive graphical overhaul. I will be the first to admit there was a real charm to the tiny 6-pixel sprites of the original game, but thanks to these new designs it's now possible to identify just what exactly you're looking at on screen. Being released on the original Game Boy of course means that this game was originally displayed in 4 different shades of green, but thankfully we're able to spruce that up a little bit with the help of later models of the Game Boy hardware. Unfortunately, Mario Land 2 doesn't offer any sort of enhanced color palette, so we're pretty much stuck with the default colorization options offered by the Game Boy Color. Personally, I feel like the dark blue color palette, accessed by holding left and A during boot, suits the game very well. The background becomes a pleasing, easy to look at blue, while Mario along with a large portion of the enemies become a pinkish red. Additionally, a few other baddies, notably Goombas, become brown, or black as seen in these ant enemies. The sprites here are massively more detailed than they were in the first entry, providing results that to me would look right at home on a home console. Comparing the two, it's genuinely hard to believe that they were released on the exact same platform, showing off just how much the Game Boy was optimized over those few years. This refined development was in no way limited to only the visuals though, as this game feels almost entirely different to control as its predecessor. Running and jumping with Mario perform a lot more like you would expect them to, and it feels really nice. Less nice is the somewhat inevitable fact that this game suffers from a less than optimal frame rate. 95% of the time, everything runs great, but every now and then, performance just tanks, leading to a bit of a subpar experience when trying to control Mario. Mario Land is divided up into 6 main sections, or zones, not at all dissimilar to any of the more mainline entries, but a huge departure from the first release. You actually move around a world map and are free to take on stages in any order you like, something you can't even do in modern Mario titles. Each zone has its own distinct theme, and in a shocking twist, not a single one of them aligns with the typical level design tropes we've all come to expect out of the series. Instead of grasslands, we have a level set in different parts of a giant tree, starting you in the roots, sending you up through the sap-filled interior, and eventually seeing you bouncing off leaves and beehives. Instead of an ice world, there's a zone that takes place inside of a huge clockwork toy Mario, complete with Lego interiors and spinning cogs to platform on. Another level sees you shrink down, Tiny Huge Island style, making your way through and under a house from the perspective of a mouse. There's just so much creativity here, and I really wish it was more commonplace for the Mario franchise to feature new, unique motifs instead of the same 8 we've been using for who knows how long. I'm also a huge fan of how cohesive it all feels as it comes together. I love how you actually progress through these areas, and each level's gimmick is based around where you are on the map of whatever place you're in. Each zone, as you've certainly puzzled together by now, ends with a boss fight. These all follow a very similar pattern. You basically just need to learn their phases and cycles and jump at the right moment to hit them on the head 3 times. It's definitely a learning-based approach to difficulty, and you might not get it quite right at first, but once you figure out what to do, you can pretty much do it over and over again as you see fit. This might actually be a good thing though, as you'll find out soon enough. I like the design of these bosses. They fit well with the theming of the worlds, and the sprite art looks great. There's some cool concepts here, rematching Tatanga, fighting an evil witch, and it's not every day you get to take on the 3 little pigs in hand-to-hand combat. This game is pretty easy, much more so than the first one. I generally had very few issues finishing stages or even finding the scant few secret unlockable levels on the world map. With that said though, Mario Land 2 takes a bit of an eccentric approach to punishment. Extra lives aren't hard to come by, you can score them quite easily during the minigames at the end of each stage, but if you do still manage to run out, you're in for a game over. Now, you don't lose any of your progress through the zone. In fact, you don't even lose any of your checkpoints. Instead, you lose all of your golden coins, the ones you get from fighting bosses and need all 6 of to access the final level. I thought this was going to be really annoying at first, but it turns out you can mostly just ignore it. That's what I did, allowing me to die 6 times a level as I typically do, and then I just rematched all the bosses when I was done with the rest of the map. It only took me like 10 minutes. The final level though, Wario's Palace, is significantly harder than the rest of the game. You'll have to trek your way through what is easily one of the longest levels without a checkpoint in sight, full of bottomless pits, lava, and even some mini-bosses. It definitely isn't easy, especially compared to the rest of the adventure, but I found it a lot of fun. It isn't all that difficult in the grand scheme of things, and the Bumpin' Challenge was a nice send-off. At the end of the castle, you'll come face to face with Wario himself. The fight is 3 phases long, so don't screw it up, but ultimately it's more of the same that we've already seen from previous fights. The day is saved, and Wario turns into a baby and chucks his shoe at you for some reason. Super Mario Land 2 did not let me down. Although I love the first entry, this is easily the better Mario title, and is honestly one of the better Mario games I've ever played. You should definitely check it out, although unfortunately the most modern official method to do so is the horrible 3DS Game Boy Virtual Console, crushing the game to black and white, lowering the brightness about halfway, and applying a generous smear to the whole screen. Original carts are also always still available, and yeah, they're probably the definitive way to play the game, at least for now, if you want to play with any color. It'll definitely do, but I really wish Nintendo would finally put some of the Game Boy library on the Switch. It does not deserve this. Hopefully though, if you enjoyed this video, you'll feel that I deserve a like. And hey, you know what? If you really enjoyed it, you could even subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of any future uploads. I really want to thank you all for the amazing support recently. I just passed over a year of weekly uploads, and I have some really exciting stuff planned for 2021, so I hope you're excited. If you'd like to follow my socials, all of that will be linked down in the description below, and while you're down there, you can check out any of the music used in this video, linked right alongside it. You can always leave a comment if you feel so inclined, as I love hearing from you, and all of your feedback is always appreciated. With that being said, I think we're about done for this week. I'll see you soon, and as always, thanks for watching.